Okay. Okay, yeah, well, I'm just going to give an introduction. Then after the introduction, I'm going to quickly go through a lot of the images that are in many of the slides that I'll be presenting. And I'm going to go through those quickly because I think in order to create a community at the eco-village scale, but also, you know, the global scale, we need to think about how we relate to one another visually, how we envision together what we envision the processes that we're going through while we are envisioning. And so I'm going to just kind of give an introduction to this presentation, then I'm going to go quickly through all the models, meaning all of the slides, but I'm just going to talk about the images. Then at the end, I'm going to show you several workshops, and then we can quickly discuss how we want to actually go through this session. We could either allow me to present the slides and then we could do the workshops, or we could, you know, have the slides and just kind of have a discussion, and we can figure that out after I've gone through the models. How does that sound for everybody? That, I think, is kind of like a unique way of doing it. But what I'm talking about in terms of community is like a common way of seeing together, a common way of living together, and a common way of kind of standardizing how we can all live toward greater fulfillment. And we can do that visually, and we can understand it visually, and sometimes that takes a bit of education. But, you know, it took me a little while to learn what a concept model is and how a concept model could be applied to our lives. And so these visual images kind of take us through the realization of community at many scales. The thing is that with a lot of what I'm going to say, I think another real value of community at any scale is transparency. So this presentation is available online, and a lot of what I'm going to say, you know, I think about beforehand, and so I take notes. So you can find the presentation on the Auravana Project's website under auravana.org/presentations, and there are even the notes. I'll be reading some of the notes, and then I'll be doing sort of ad lib. But, you know, I try to put everything transparently because I think if we're trying to work together to create an integrated system at any scale, we need to be transparent. So even the notes and some of the things that I've thought about before giving this presentation, they're there, and you can access the slides there. You should be able to access the notes too. Yes, I'll share the link at the end. Yeah, it's just auravana.org/presentation. So this presentation is on eco-village community development by means of a sense of togetherness. So this is sort of like what community is, a togetherness of information systems and how we relate together, and sort of the socio-technical standardization of that so that we can live in a state of greater fulfillment. So at any scale, the eco-village or the city scale, the individual household scale, what we're trying, I think, to do, you know, as a community in the sense of the word of just of a group of people working on this direction, we're trying to create a system where we can have our needs fulfilled at various scales. The kind of top level concept for that is society. So, you know, a society of these subsystems to which our lives relate, which we can then begin configuring at various scales. And the sort of terminology for the specific configuration of a system like this is a standard. And I mean, that's kind of how our society presently operates. Our society presently operates based upon a set of standards. And these standards exist at the business level. These standards exist at the national and international level. And these standards formalize a way of doing something together safely in conceptual or physical operational form. And so that's how, you know, you want to build something in today's society. You follow a set of standards. So eco-village is the same. We could create or facilitate the organization of set of standards that are formalized, unified, and integrated that represent an eco-village as a part of a community-type society. So, and we can visualize that together and then realize that through cooperation of our relationships rather than competition, which is sometimes how community is not viewed, but community under a sense of competition for scarcity and authority, coercion kind of becomes very separated. The concept becomes, you know, my activity group community, or my social network community. And the idea I'm trying to convey in this presentation, and really the Auravana project is trying to convey, is that we can create a socio-technical standard for the operation of community at all scales, necessarily from the eco-village scale to the city network scale, or eco-village to eco-village network scale. A type of society that orients and sustains human fulfillment at all scales. So we can create a set of standards, and the Auravana project has begun doing that. There are many other standards out there, many other standards bodies, some of them we'll discuss in the workshops. So together we can, and I call this simplex. So this is a very simple to understand concept, but it's also an extremely complex concept to understand when being realized. You know, you can understand it at the high system level, or you can understand the intricate, you know, mechanismal operation and development of the system. So I'm going to go through the visual images now pretty quickly, and just give you a brief overview of, you know, how the integration of these societal standards works in terms of conception through to basic operation. So this is the first slide, and you can see here the images on the left. These are an extraordinarily high level organizational view of community. You have a single unified information system from which a distributed or hierarchical version of a network forms concepts and operations that both downscale and upscale into community. So you can represent the entire unified information system about the optimal operation of our society when oriented in a specific direction, because every society can have a purpose and set of goals, a direction, and then that total information system is developed. And so these are the two conceptual views. On the left image, up at the top, you would have the network of integrated city systems. Right now, it's kind of like, you could imagine that as the globe, or you could imagine that as like parts of land where there are cities. But so a network of actual physical cities where people exist, and then you have the information system underneath, and then you have the branching of the information system into the various initial societal standards, and then the branching of those standards into their sub-data information sets. On the right, you have a more accurate visual view of the information system itself. Up at the top, you have sort of the social data set. To the right, you have the decisioning data set. Underneath, you have a material data set. And to the left, of course, you could have like a lifestyle data set. So that's that image. This is the four. Every society can be separated into 4 standards, and this is like the relationships between those standards. So this is another view of what I was showing you here to the right. This is the real world information system, and this is one view. The top is the social, right is decision. You have human coordination, and all of this can be represented in an information set, societal information system, as you can see. So next slide. This is more of an artistic slide, but at the center you can see the earth, and then you have the operational processes, both ecological services and our own habitats. And then you have the 3 habitat systems, life, exploratory, and and technology. So here is a higher level layered architecture of the entire model. And so, you know, you have the biosphere, you have decisions about the biosphere feeding into life support, which provides services for meeting the needs of the population of any scale society. But this is a community type society. So then you have technology support needs, and it's kind of like spaceship, looks kind of like spaceship, but this is just a layered reference model. of a breakout of it. And there are many ways to visualize this. The next, you can see we begin cooperating, and as we begin cooperating, we can begin more greatly to the left. We cooperate as individuated units of consciousness, and we begin creating a structure on the right that can lead us in various directions. Here we have contribution, so contribution to community efforts, of which eco-villages are one form of community effort. And so you have people who are currently contributing or will be contributing in the future. You have an orienteering process, and then some of those people choose to contribute and other people don't choose to contribute. And we can optimize this. This is an expression of the entire societal system. And we're trying to create community, and one of the most significant factors in community is contribution. And the level of competence, the quality of that contribution, the desire or not desire to contribute, the coordination of that contribution is a very significant part of the execution of community at any scale. Here we have a visualization of the total sort of how contribution creates a greater state of access. So you have a specific unified information set which is coordinated by a team of coordinators. You have individuals in working groups. Like most standards are generally developed, the national, international standards. They're developed by working groups, these technical, socio-technical, in the case of an entire society, working groups. These working groups can be identified, and an eco-village will also have a set of working groups. Those working groups, the information that they produce is used to resolve decisions as well as using potential, depending upon the scale of the population, algorithms, socioeconomic calculation, or socialist economic calculation, various economic algorithms, not based upon competition, mostly using, this is discussed in the decision system, mostly using matrix mathematics, but also using the resolution of inquiry processes that are completed, information sets that are completed by other working groups. Then you have habitat service system coordination. This is people actually doing the physical operation in the physical work. In a physical eco-village or a physical city. These are people who are contributing physically, whereas previously the prior mostly information contributors. So you now have a team of people who are working in the environment, and what habitat service system are they working on, and then the type of access that is produced by the whole system. And in community, at least to my understanding, is reasoned in the decision system. There are three forms of access. So it depends upon how eco-villages are developed within different environments. But the potential of an eco-village is to create a network of these eco-villages that are sharing resources, but also producing abundance. And that can be developed. And here is just because, again, this is very visual, but we can also describe this. And I describe a lot of this in the Urbana Project books, which are freely available on the PDFs, as PDFs on the website. Obviously the Amazon versions cost money, but everything's free. The project's open source. So, and we hope, to contribute, we hope to gain more contributors, and, it's because we can all complete, if we all work together on a unified system, we can really create community at the global scale. And so whatever project you're working on, if you're working on a project where we're able to coordinate and cooperate and share, then we begin unifying our information sets. And this is sort of what you're seeing here in this model. We have a real world information system, and we can create that in an integrated manner. So we begin integrating all our data sets into an optimal, visual and conceptual realization of what's possible at the eco-village scale. And then you see those two, that helix is composed of information and materiality. And together that realizes a set of operational processes that are capable of meeting human fulfillment at the societal scale, and forming into one population center and then a network of these population centers. So this is what's possible. So no matter what standard you participate with, at the working group level or as a habitat service system, if it's feeding a network of a community network, then really we can realize a society where we can have eco-villages and we can have households that exist from the small eco-village scale or even several household scale to the major city scale, where we don't need to trade, where we don't need to participate in competition with fulfillment with one another, and we don't need, because of the emergent issues that come from this view of scarcity and this treating of others as competition, the coercive authority. So we can create community where there is no coercion, or where there is less coercion, and where everything operates at a higher level of fulfillment for everyone. So this is another view of the model. So you have a network of city systems, you have one eco-village, you have a habitat service system, proper operational processes, you have all the people who are contributing, all those nodes of contribution. You have that in a horizontal model, a cut view model. The flower petals there are top model, and then the side is a cut. And then you have information materiality coming together, both in an information system and into physical materiality. And so then this is a view of contribution. In any kind of current societal operation, there are other societies. So you have an interface team that interfaces with the other societies. You have habitat teams that work in the eco-village, and then you have working groups. And then everything can be matrixed, and we can be matrixing everything together and optimizing the eco-village network. Here you have the 4 primary systems, and then a small eco-village that we're kind of working on below. Here is the eco-village that you can basically take a representation of the information system and then kind of overlay it on this. And then here is the, here's the eco-village on the left, and the information can be modeled back, and you can begin relating between the physical environment and this information system model. So can we discuss habitat service systems? Because this is an extremely important concept that we need to have as we're developing eco-village and eco-village networks. We're really developing a habitat service system. And this habitat service system is designed to fulfill a population. So if you begin thinking along those lines, then we can begin engineering them along those lines. How could we reorganize the habitat? This is something I'm interested in. I think other people would, often people are like, well, why, is the habitat life support, technology support, exploratory support, or what are the subsystems? So, an emergent state of development, maybe different habitats, maybe different eco-village communities would have different ones. Yes, these are very important questions that you've raised, and you've raised a lot of very complex problems that I think are very difficult to understand under our current information set, with the way information is currently integrated. We have to think about ourselves in a historical context to some degree. We're in a period of confusion where there's a lot of confusion on that planet. And I think a lot of that confusion is integrated into the way we think and work together, and is very difficult to overcome. And probably few people on the planet have taken the time to begin integration of all information sets so that it's possible to produce a state of fulfillment where our emergent expressions and properties and capabilities are still challenged and capable of becoming, and allow us through various means to become better people, or more expressive people, or people more capable of operating in even a thought responsive environment where you're almost in a mental space that, you know, responds to your thoughts. And so we can begin living together. I think that's really kind of what you could view a set of standards like this. Standards, like even now, even on the way they're currently applied in modern society, they sort of represent a sense of togetherness. It's not a very healthy sense of togetherness. It's like the togetherness of nations and states and the togetherness of, you know, I don't know, businesses, and then the togetherness of private entities, you know, with their own agendas. And instead, we could create a set of standards that make us feel like we're flourishing. And we can begin visualizing that together and realizing that together. And so, you know, in the project, if I just talk about the standards that Auravana produces, although there are, you know, many, there's like the ISO, I'll mention a few others, and these create the safe environment around us when we're creating complex things together. And I think we can do that at the social level too. Remember, these standards and the way we're educated in modern society is very disciplined and separated. And I think if we begin thinking together and integrating information together, we can resolve less contradictory environments where maybe we can realize together that we have common human needs, and we can feel the fulfillment of those needs, and we can see the lack of fulfillment in the needs of others in our environment, and we can begin codifying that. We can begin saying, you know, what is a life support need, and what are the materials, and what is the information required to sufficiently meet that need, and then allow for, once you have life support, you know, once you have things like medical care, you know, safety, water, food, you know, good nutrition, we're healthy otherwise, then we can begin thinking about what level of technology we want, you know, because different eco-villages will have different levels of technology. And this can all be worked into a decision protocol that allows us to optimize toward a specific direction, like the direction of human well-being or human flourishing. These are all concepts, as I was mentioning like a couple minutes ago, described in the direction section of the project plan, because every society, every eco-village is a project, and it's a living project, and it's a continuous project, and a society really is a higher level system. And for a project, you have a project plan, and we can plan our fulfillment and our the broadening of our abilities in that, so a higher level of expression. We can begin planning for that. Like, people plan in this environment for more wealth. People plan in this environment for more objects or more property. We can begin planning together to design an eco-village habitat service system network that, you know, fulfills all of us. And we can identify what a need is, and those needs then become those needs are kind of combined with objectives, like engineering a society. We're essentially engineering at the eco-village level. The eco-village, am I still here? Are you saying me? At any level, you can essentially, like, you know, describe and explain what you're creating, and we can do that. And those are important and serious questions, and that's why any standard or document that begins to presuppose the envisioning of another society really should be extremely detailed within its reasoning. And, you know, people should, you know, one needs to kind of like, in order to come to an understanding of a different society, sometimes one needs to like do some work on integration of information, and that's certainly what I've been doing, and I'm always doing, trying to integrate new information so I can realize a better society. Those seriously complex questions need to be not only discussed but answered in text. And so a lot of the questions you have about human needs are in the description section of the project plan. They're also in the social system, because what you're talking about, a community is what is common to all of us. Right, we're trying to find the highest level commonalities, and of course that's togetherness, and modern standards aren't based upon this, and we are together, I think, as people working on eco-villages, because what are the values behind eco-villages? There's sustainability, really cooperation. So we're trying to create community, the development of a community, and we can use a set of standards to do that. So at the social level, you have a social data information set, and we can begin collecting data and using that data to inform better decisions, which lead to better states of our material environment, and then better lifestyles, and then more and different data and into the data section. And so you can see this model, and in fact, the model that I'm showing you on this slide to the right, it's actually a spiral. So you have this is what's somewhat unique about these societal standards themselves, that if one begins designing from that level, because remember, in modern society, they use different terms for their systems. So in the market state, they use the term economic. One of the primary systems is economic, and the social system is very confused. And then they have an economic, so socioeconomic. So they use one of their top level systems is the economic system. Now that is not one of the top level systems in this spiral model. It is one of the top level systems of any society. An economic system is just a decision system about the transformation of resources into needed goods and services, and the top level system is actually a decision system, which this system accurately and appropriately configures these four systems. The social system data is fed into a decision system. That decision system is contributed to, because remember, we're in community where people are contributing, and so there's no competition, or there should be reduced competition, or so there should be a direction toward reduced competition in transition. And then those cooperators are coordinated into taking decisions that lead to changes in the habitat service system, the material environment. And so those changes affect the lives of the users, because remember, in this we're talking about community, and in the market state there's the employee, the employer, and the consumer, and so they're separated. So when you begin thinking about standards like in the market state, you really are thinking about a different type of society. So we could describe that society, but really what we should instead do, that might be useful and is useful, but what we are instead, the direction we are going toward is toward community development. Yeah, I think we're co-creating together, and our level of consciousness changes depending upon our own internal experiences and external experiences and the traumas that we go through. And so, I would like to get to another question, but before we get to the other question, I just would like to talk about consciousness for one moment. Actually, one of the exploratory subsystems of the habitat service system is consciousness exploration. So the system actually engages with consciousness, recognized consciousness that's described in some of the standards themselves, because it's an important concept, particularly in the social system, because really community is a togetherness, but it's togetherness at many scales, and one scale is the individual and the social. So any other questions? Yes, that's a complex question. So we have the information system, and we have a materialized habitat service system, and we can optimize both, we can optimize both in a unified set of standards that we all collaborate upon and are working upon, either in working groups. And then we have an optimized material environment, which is a habitat service system fulfillment that meets our service and object. In the market, it would be service and product, but you could still use the word product, but they're objects as well, fulfillment. And that can be done in a more automated or less automated way. We all value, in a community, we all value efficiency, because we're in a material environment where we can die, And so, we all value efficiency. The degree to which we apply technology within the value orientation of efficiency may differ. So at some eco-village levels, there may be low technology. At other eco-village levels, there may be high technology. But all of that information set itself in terms of the material technologies and the material compositions, the material processes to produce and distribute various technologies are described in the material service system, any standard. And so a lot of the material standards now, like the material standard for USB or the material standard for building a home, all of that's codified in various international and regional standards, how to do those things safely and how to do those things compatibly. And so we can do that for community. We can inform a unified standard and then pick from that standard the right modules for our material service system, even though we might be operating upon a common social system and decision system. Our material configurations might look different because of our local environments. Again, everything's visualized. Remember that as we're working on this, everything needs to be visualized. Concept models, visualizations, technical drawings, visualizations. So in community, there are three contribution type teams. There's the contribution service team, the team that coordinates contribution. They're one system. And then you have information working groups, and then you have habitat service teams. And because we're currently in a society where there are other societies, you also have an interface with the other society. And so you have a team that's composed of that society. So thinking about contribution and optimizing contribution at any scale, you have the people working on the documentation, the working groups, or working on the information necessary to resolve decisions, or working on the plan, which is all information. And then you have the people working in the physical environment. And then you can begin breaking that out. Model. I don't have the models here, but you can break those out significantly further. And that's what accomplishes work by co-creation, which is just another synonym really for cooperation, togetherness. These are all synonyms, I think, for community in some sense.